Hello and welcome to WomanVision TV. I'm your host, Nadia Jordana. I like to do a variety of fun and interesting things on the show. Sometimes that means I'll be interviewing one of the extraordinary women that I've met in my travels. And other times I'll be in the kitchen cooking up something interesting that you might like to try too. Then again, I might do something completely different. Today I have a guest, Mary Treacy O'Keefe. Mary is the co-founder and president of Well Within, which is a holistic wellness resource center located in Woodbury, Minnesota. Among other things, Mary is the author of 2 books and the host of a top-rated internet radio program. Let's go talk to Mary. Welcome to the show, Mary. I'm glad you could come by the studio.
Oh, thanks, Nadia. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, let's start by hearing about it was a series of life events that came about, that brought about your founding Well Within.
Yes.
Tell us your story.
Well, thanks for asking about that. Yes, it's really kind of an effort in a way to make meaning out of something, from your own experiences. And so when I had breast cancer in 1999, I was able to experience the benefit of holistic therapies. I had a rather dramatic recovery using healing touch after I had a mastectomy and some complications that were actually life-threatening. And what I noticed was that immediately I felt peaceful and the anxiety of everything was gone, but I also really did have some physical healing take place. So soon after my recovery, I volunteered. I became a healing touch practitioner, and I volunteered at another center that does like we do, which is offering low cost and free holistic healing therapies. And that happened in 2004 that we opened Well Within. And since then, we have served thousands of people living with serious illnesses. And currently, we have a psychotherapist on board that sees people 4 days a week. We have integrative healing touch and Reiki and other therapies that help really foster healing of mind, body, and spirit. And then we have support groups. I just had a support group last night, and we have also outreach retreats to people right within their low-income communities. So a variety of things that we have.
Oh, I think that is great. It was interesting how that came about. Now, Well Within and its commitment and its purpose, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, our commitment is that we recognize that when you go through a health crisis, a couple of things. First of all, sometimes you feel like you're a victim. I heard that last night at a support group. People don't want to be a victim to their situation. They want to be empowered to do whatever it is that they can do to take charge of their own health and to get as healthy as they can. And so what we see ourselves as doing is helping to provide those tools, techniques, skills that will enable you to be the person that you are meant to be, and healthy in mind, body, and spirit. So, but we also realize that a health crisis in particular can often precipitate a financial crisis. Yeah. That's why we were a nonprofit, and that's why we offer things really totally free to the majority of people that come to see us.
Well, now you also have a radio program. Tell us how that fits into the mix of things.
Sure, thanks for asking that. Well, we decided as a board and also as a staff of Well Within is how can we bring our education and some of the wisdom of the people that, frankly, volunteer for us, how can we bring that into the greater world? And you can do that through internet radio. And so I do have a show. This is my second show, actually. The first one was called Well Within, but this one is called Hope, Healing, and Well-Being, because I figured that captures lots of different things. And so the idea is to talk to people with inspiring stories, and also medical professionals, therapeutic professionals, spiritual leaders, anybody that has something to offer our audience that, again, will give them hope, inspire them, and foster that healing process. And really that covers a wide gamut of things, not just physical healing.
It really would, wouldn't
yes,
it?
Yes, it does.
Well, what are some of the unique needs of the cancer survivors and the families that come through your center?
You know, that's a great question, because you know, we're not medical professionals. We're not even, we have a psychotherapist, but I'm not a therapist. I'm actually trained as a spiritual director. So what we see our role is helping to meet the psychosocial spiritual aspects of healing, because they're going to go to their physician to get their medical, their clinical needs met. And the research is showing, especially, for example, with cancer patients, there was an article last fall in the Wall Street Journal that shows that when patients are under distress, in other words, if they have depression or anxiety, or they feel powerless, what happens is sometimes they aren't as compliant with their treatment, and there's all sorts of other issues. You know, that's that mind-body connection, is when you're feeling those things and you're stressed and you're in the fight or flight mentality, you don't focus on living in the present moment. You may not focus on, what do I do to eat properly? You don't take charge and do the things that you can really do to help yourself heal, because your doctor can't do those things for you, right? Everything is that we do is to foster healing inside and outside. That's why the name Well Within fits quite perfectly with what we try to do.
It does, and I think you're right. These are the kinds of things that you're not going to get from your doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe they could, or they would if they could,
Yeah.
but it's just not generally out there in that sense. So you're providing a service that
Yes.
people aren't getting somewhere else.
Yes, and what I do want to say about that, Nadia, is that they would love to provide it.
Yeah.
You know, for example, we are doing an event, which I'll tell you about right now. It's called Becoming Well Within, on September 14th. That is an event for cancer survivors and those who love them. Well, our presenting sponsor for that event is Minnesota Oncology, because they recognize that, yes, we can do the medical clinical needs, and they realize, especially for survivors, whether they're 1 day out or 10 years out, that there are these other needs. And so by partnering with us, we can help them help their patients, and they, through their sponsorship and also their contacts, quite frankly, can help us put on an incredible event where we have 4 different speakers that are going to provide inspiration, humor, education, and again, give these tools and techniques that people will learn so that they can, you know, really help themselves become as well as they can be. And, you know, one thing that I want to mention as far as that goes, Nadia, is we've had some questions from people, you know, like, well, I'm a survivor, but I have metastatic cancer or something like that. I have stage 4. You know, the reality is you need to distinguish between healing and curing, because some of the people that come to that conference, some of the people that we see at Well Within, they are not going to be cured of their illness. Or maybe they have a chronic illness. They're not going to get a cure from that. But they can be healed when you think about things from the spirit and the emotion and the mind. You can be healed in those areas. So actually, right up until the end of your life, you can have healing take place. And we get to see that, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. So the information on that conference is on our website at wellwithin.org under the special events. And we'd love to have anybody join us. And we have scholarships, again, realizing that even though it's only $39 until September 1st and then $49, but we realize that that's tough. So be sure to contact us, because we'd love to have people come, even if they need a scholarship.
Well, that's good information too, and I will put that link
Thank
on
you.
the screen for you.
Great.
Your therapies, we're talking about cancer and the families of cancer survivors, but it's not just about cancer, is it? You treat, or I should say you offer services to people who are suffering from other issues.
Exactly. So, for example, last night, without going into any detail and violating any privacy, I'll just tell you some of the issues we were dealing with. Out of 14 people, 3 had cancer. Other people had depression. They had some chronic situations going on. Another person was a support person for their spouse that was there, which we also do. So we deal with chronic situations, mostly, I would say, physical illnesses, but really some people do come with a primary issue of depression and anxiety. Although, again, I want to stress we're not medical health professionals. And when we asked why they came or how they heard about us, I would say the biggest referring group was therapists. because the therapists hear their stories and they realize that this person in front of me wants to do what they can do to live their very best life and live as fully as possible. So, so yes, all those. In fact, our cancer patient population is probably, well, it's definitely less than half of what we see. So, and because it's people with chronic illness, sometimes we see people literally for years.
Well, you've written 2 books.
I have,
also.
yes.
Tell us about your books.
Thank you. Well, the first one you just happen to have right here, thank you.
That's my copy, yes.
Called Thin Places, Where Faith is Affirmed and Hope Dwells. And this book was really written for my family after my parents died within 3 months of each other in 2002. And we observed, as a family, an Irish Catholic family of 10 kids and spouses and about 35 grandchildren, many of us observed what I would say are signs. Things that would happen before my parents died, during the dying process, and afterwards that brought us tremendous comfort. They made us realize we were not alone, but mainly the idea of a thin place is that it's the idea that we have experience in our life where it's as the veil is if the veil's very thin between this world and the next. Dying's a thin place. You've heard these after-death stories, haven't you? Maybe you've had your own experiences. And those experiences are very comforting, but also make us realize there's got to be a God. There's got to be a higher power, because they couldn't just happen.
No.
So the biggest market for thin places is really people who are grieving because they've had their own experiences. And that's why the tagline is where faith is affirmed and hope dwells. Their faith is affirmed, and I should say this isn't about religion, because the stories can come from all different faith traditions and people who say they're spiritual and not religious. But speaking of that, that leads into my next book, because what happened was, after this book came out, and still to this day, this has been out for a few years, I get emails and letters from people who share their stories. So my next book is called Meant to Be, Discerning What We Are Called to Be and Do. And that's about well, it's about 55 stories in there from people. Some are around death and dying. Others are stories about coincidences, synchronicity that happens. Something happens 3 times. It's like a sign to tell you to do something. That still small voice within that you hear that guides you. So it's about paying attention, responding to those, and the whole idea of discerning what you're called to be and do is the idea that sometimes these meant to be events are telling us something. They're telling us to maybe be comforted, or to be in awe when we see something incredible in nature, or to do something, whether it's a small act of kindness, or frankly for me it was opening up a nonprofit center. I mean, if I told you the long story, it would be a series of meant to be events that motivated me to do that, and it was my choice. Do I do it or not do it? And I would advocate to say to do it when it offers you the opportunity to extend kindness and love to others, which is why I think we're here. That's what we're called to do, don't you think?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I loved Thin Places, so when Meant to Be comes out, please reserve me a copy. When will that be out?
Well, I've just finished it. I'm now trying to find a home for it. But I would say for sure by sometime next year in 2014 it'll be out. But I am giving speeches on it right now. I'm still welcoming the stories, whether I use it for this book or another book. I love to hear the stories.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And now, is there anything that I've forgotten to ask you that you'd like to add?
Well, I guess the biggest thing would be that I really want to invite people, if they're dealing with any kind of illness, any kind of healing that needs to take place in their life, or for someone that loves them. You know, when somebody has cancer or an illness, you want to help them. And so if they know of somebody like that, tell them to check out our website, wellwithin.org. And certainly if you have cancer or know anybody that does, or if you just want to come yourself, come, because the things you'll learn there really are applicable to everybody. The things you do for cancer prevention are good for your heart health, for your brain health, for your overall well-being. So again, go to that website at wellwithin.org. And then lastly, I do love to give talks, and so if people want to learn about my presentations or my book, they can go to my website, which is MaryTreacyO'Keefe.com, and that Tracy is the Irish way of spelling it, which is Treacy, so MaryTreacy.com. And But otherwise, yes, and feel free to contact me through my website too. I love to be in touch with anybody that wants to reach me.
Oh, great, Mary. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
We'll talk again,
Thanks,
too.
Nadia. I enjoyed it very much.
Bye.
Bye now.